For decades, there's this one patch of ocean that's haunted our collective imagination more than pretty much any other. A place where ships and planes just seem to vanish without a trace. So today, let's dive in and try to separate the real facts from the wild fiction surrounding the notorious Bermuda Triangle.
And it really all kicks off with voices just like this one, confused, totally lost, broadcasting from what sounds like the very edge of oblivion. This right here is a chilling transmission from Flight 19, the one disappearance that basically cemented the Bermuda Triangle's terrifying legend.
So picture this, it's December 5th, 1945. What starts as a totally routine training mission, well, it turns into an absolute nightmare. In just a little over 3 hours, 5 entire Navy bombers are just gone, completely lost. But wait, the horror wasn't over. The 2 rescue planes they sent to find them, yeah, they vanished too.
So yeah, this incident, the complete and utter vanishing of Flight 19, this is the bedrock. It's the foundation of the whole Bermuda Triangle legend.
And you really have to consider the scale of what happened in just one afternoon. We're not talking about just one plane here. This was 7 aircraft and 27 crewmen basically wiped off the map in a matter of hours. Just incredible.
Okay, so the response was, as you'd expect, massive. The Navy and the Coast Guard scoured 250,000 square miles of the Atlantic. I mean, a huge area. And what did they find? Absolutely nothing. No wreckage, no oil slicks, not a single life raft. Just empty ocean.
And this quote, this really tells you everything about the pilot's state of mind. White water? From the air? What does that even mean? It points to maybe extreme weather or just severe disorientation, or probably both. They weren't just lost. It was like their whole perception of the world around them was just breaking down.
So, here's the first big clue investigators pieced together. The flight leader, Lieutenant Taylor, was a really experienced pilot, but it seems his compass was failing him, so he started making these navigational choices based on a fatal mistake. He thought he was over the Florida Keys. But the tragic irony, he was actually right where he was supposed to be, near the Bahamas.
But here's the thing. Flight 19 wasn't some crazy one-off event. It was actually just the most famous piece of a much larger and frankly disturbing pattern of disappearances in that region.
Let's look at the Star Tiger, for example. This was back in 1948. A big British passenger plane, 31 people on board. Now the pilot made a very specific and what turned out to be a fatal decision. He decided to fly super low, at just 2,000 feet, to try and get under some heavy winds. He made one last totally routine radio call, and then gone. No distress signal, nothing. And get this, that same year, the DC-3 incident adds this whole other layer of weirdness. I mean, look at this. Its radio signals weren't being picked up by the towers that were closest to it. A message that was meant for Miami, which was nearby, somehow gets received all the way over in New Orleans, 600 miles away. It's like the basic laws of physics for radio waves were just breaking down. And then, you guessed it, silence. So with this whole string of just baffling events, you have to ask the big question, right? What is really going on in the Bermuda Triangle? Are these just a bunch of tragic coincidences, or is there something uniquely dangerous about this specific stretch of ocean?
Well, it turns out there are unique dangers here, but the explanations, they're in supernatural. They're actually rooted in some pretty cool geology and physics. So let's get into the science of it.
Okay, so one of the biggest factors is something called an agonist line. Now, the Bermuda Triangle is one of the very few places on the entire planet where a compass doesn't point to magnetic north. Instead, it points to true north, the geographic top of the planet.
So why does that even matter? Well, it matters a lot, because as you can see here, those 2 points, magnetic and true north, can be up to 1,200 miles apart. Now imagine you're a pilot back in 1945, and you're relying entirely on a magnetic compass. If you don't account for that huge difference, that's a recipe for getting catastrophically lost.
And believe it or not, it gets even worse. The very rock that makes up the seafloor here is a problem. The underwater volcano that actually formed Bermuda, it's loaded with magnetite, which is literally the most magnetic natural substance on Earth. That rock alone can throw a compass off by 10 degrees. And when you're flying for hundreds of miles, a 10-degree error, that's fatal.
All right, then there's this other wild idea, the methane blowout theory. So the seafloor here has these huge deposits of frozen methane gas. If an undersea shift releases that gas all at once, the ocean basically erupts into this foamy, fizzy soup that has no buoyancy. A ship could just sink like a stone. And for a low-flying plane, like the Star Tiger we talked about, that same flammable gas hitting hot engines could mean instant catastrophic disaster.
Okay, but spectacular theories are one thing. The truth is, the mystery can also be explained by a combination of more mundane, but trust me, equally deadly factors.
You see, what this really comes down to isn't one single spooky cause. It's more like a perfect storm of factors. First, this area is a literal hurricane alley with insane weather. Second, the planes back then had really primitive navigation, no GPS, none of that. And third, under immense stress, even the absolute best pilots can make mistakes. You combine those three things, you have a perfect recipe for disaster.
And let's circle back for a second to that DC-3 with the weird radio signals. Here's a key fact. Before it even took off, the crew knew its battery was weak. So, the most likely explanation for it vanishing isn't some paranormal vortex. It's that the battery just finally died, knocking out all of its navigation and communication systems in the middle of the night over the open sea.
So you see, when we start to put all these pieces together, the legendary mystery of the Bermuda Triangle, well, it begins to look less like a paranormal horror story and a lot more like a cautionary tale about science, technology, and just plain old human fallibility.
So this is the real story, the real mystery. It's a convergence of all these factors. You've got unique magnetic conditions messing with compasses. You've got sudden, intense, and totally unpredictable weather. You're dealing with the limits of mid-20th century aviation tech. And you have the simple, unavoidable reality of human error under extreme stress. It's not that more things disappear here than anywhere else with this much traffic. It's that for a long time, the conditions were absolutely perfect for disappearing without a single trace. So in the end, the Bermuda Triangle isn't some paranormal vortex. It's a powerful myth, for sure, but one that was born from a perfect storm of geography, wild weather, and human limitations. It really proves that sometimes the most logical explanation is actually the most terrifying one. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other great legends out there are just waiting for the right scientific keys to finally unlock them?